When a 400-pound black bear broke into their remote mountain cabin, the Johnson family prepared for the worst. Bears don't break into homes to be friendly. But this bear wasn't there to hunt. He was there to warn them about a danger they couldn't see, smell, or hear. The Johnson family had been planning their week-long retreat to the Colorado Rockies for months. Sarah Johnson, a nurse from Denver, desperately needed the break from her demanding hospital shifts. Her husband Mike, a software engineer, had been working overtime for weeks and was looking forward to disconnecting from technology. Their two children, 8-year-old Emma and 10-year-old Jake, were excited about their first real wilderness adventure. The cabin they'd rented sat at 8,200 feet elevation, nestled among towering pines and aspens in a remote area of the San Juan National Forest. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, and cell phone service was non-existent. It was exactly the kind of isolation the family craved after months of city stress. The cabin itself was a beautiful log structure built in the 1970s, recently renovated with modern amenities while maintaining its rustic charm. Large windows offered spectacular views of snow-capped peaks, and the wraparound deck provided the perfect spot for morning coffee and evening SDA. Mike had done his research before booking the cabin. The area was known for wildlife: elk, deer, mountain lions, and yes, black bears. But the rental agency had assured him that bear encounters were rare, especially if proper food storage protocols were followed. The cabin was equipped with bear-proof containers and detailed instructions for keeping attractants secured. On their first day, the family had spotted a family of deer grazing near the cabin and heard the haunting call of elk in the distance. The children were thrilled by the wildlife sightings, and Sarah found herself relaxing for the first time in months. "This is perfect," Sarah told Mike as they sat on the deck after dinner, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and pink. "No hospitals, no emergencies, just peace and quiet." Mike nodded, feeling the stress of his job beginning to melt away. "The kids love it too." "When's the last time we saw them this engaged with something that wasn't a screen?" Emma and Jake had spent the day exploring the area immediately around the cabin, collecting interesting rocks and pine cones, and learning to identify different bird calls. The clean mountain air and physical activity had worn them out in the best possible way. As night fell on their second day, the family followed their new routine. They secured all food in the bear-proof containers, brought in anything that might attract wildlife, and settled in for the evening. Mike built a fire in the stone fireplace, while Sarah helped the children with a nature journal they'd started. The cabin felt cozy and secure. Double-paned windows kept the mountain chill at bay, and the solid log construction gave everyone a sense of safety and permanence outside. The temperature was dropping toward freezing, typical for October in the high country. None of them noticed the faint, sweet smell beginning to seep through the floorboards. At 17 a.m., Sarah woke to a sound she couldn't immediately identify. It was a rhythmic scratching, like something large moving through the underbrush outside. Living in the city, she wasn't accustomed to the normal sounds of the wilderness, so she lay still, listening and trying to determine if the noise was cause for concern. Mike stirred beside her. "You hear that?" he whispered. "What do you think it is?" Before Mike could answer, the sound changed. Heavy footsteps on the wooden deck, deliberate and purposeful. Something large was moving around the cabin's perimeter. Mike slipped out of bed and moved carefully to the window, staying to one side as he peered through the curtains. The motion sensor security light had activated, casting harsh shadows across the deck. In the illuminated area, he could see overturned deck chairs and what looked like claw marks on the wooden railing. "Sarah," Mike's voice was tight with controlled fear. "Wake the kids, quietly." Sarah immediately understood the gravity in his tone. She moved to the children's room, while Mike continued watching from the window. The footsteps had stopped, but that somehow felt more ominous than when they could track the animal's location. Emma, and Jake woke confused, but sensed the tension immediately. Sarah guided them to the master bedroom, where the family huddled together, trying to decide what to do. Should we call someone? Sarah asked, then remembered their isolation. No cell service, no landline, no way to contact the outside world. The sound, when it came, was unmistakable and terrifying. Splintering wood, metal hinges screaming under pressure, and then the crash of their front door being torn from its frame. Whatever was outside had just come inside. Heavy breathing filled the silence, along with the sound of something large moving through their living room. Mike grabbed the baseball bat he'd brought for hiking, a poor defense against whatever had just invaded their sanctuary. But better than nothing. Stay here, he whispered to Sarah, but she immediately shook her head. We stay together, she said firmly. Her medical training had taught her to function under pressure, and right now her family needed her to think clearly. The sounds from the living room continued, not the frantic destruction they might expect from a panicked animal, but deliberate, methodical movement. It was as if whatever had entered was searching for something specific. Mike moved to the bedroom door, bat in hand, and slowly turned the handle. The hallway was dark, but light from the living room fire cast dancing shadows on the walls, and there, silhouetted against the firelight, was the unmistakable bulk of a massive black bear. The bear was enormous, easily 400 pounds, with a broad head and powerful shoulders that spoke of years surviving in the wilderness. He stood in the center of their living room, not rummaging through cabinets or searching for food, but simply standing and breathing heavily. Mike's grip tightened on the baseball bat. Though he knew it would be useless against an animal of this size, black bears could run 30 miles per hour, climb trees with ease, and had bite forces exceeding 800 pounds per square inch. If this bear wanted to hurt them, there was little they could do to stop it. But the bear wasn't behaving aggressively. His ears weren't pinned back, his hackles weren't raised, and he wasn't making the huffing or jaw-popping sounds that typically preceded a bear attack. Instead, he seemed almost anxious. Sarah appeared beside Mike, the children safely behind them. As a nurse, she'd developed good instincts for reading body language and recognizing distress, even in animals. He's not hunting, she whispered. Look at his posture. He's agitated, but not aggressive. The bear's head turned toward their voices, and for a moment, human and animal regarded each other across the dim cabin. His small, dark eyes held an intelligence that was unsettling. This wasn't the mindless predator they'd expected. Suddenly, the bear moved, not toward them, but toward the kitchen area. He stood up on his hind legs, his massive head nearly touching the ceiling, and began sniffing the air with obvious urgency. What's he doing? Jake whispered, his 10-year-old curiosity overcoming his fear. The bear dropped back to all fours and moved to the kitchen floor, where he began pawing at the linoleum near the stove. His behavior was becoming more frantic, and low vocalizations rumbled from his chest, not growls, but something that sounded almost like whimpering. Mike had been a Boy Scout and had taken wilderness safety courses before the trip. He knew that bears had an incredible sense of smell, 7 times more sensitive than a bloodhound's. If this bear was detecting something in their kitchen, it might be something the family couldn't perceive. Sarah, Mike said slowly, when we checked in, did they mention anything about gas lines, propane? Sarah's eyes widened as she understood his implication. The cabin used propane for cooking and heating. A leak could be odorless to humans, but easily detectable to an animal with the bear's olfactory capabilities. The bear's behavior was becoming more urgent. He continued pawing at the floor near the gas range, looking back at the family as if trying to communicate something vital. He's trying to tell us something, Sarah said with growing certainty. He didn't come here for food. He came here to warn us. Mike set down the baseball bat and slowly approached the kitchen area, giving the bear a wide berth. The massive animal watched him, but didn't retreat or show signs of aggression. If anything, the bear seemed relieved that a human was finally paying attention to what he'd been trying to show them. As Mike got closer to the stove area, he noticed something he'd missed before: a faint but unmistakable odor. Natural gas has a distinctive smell added specifically so humans can detect leaks, but the concentration had been too low for the family to notice while sleeping. "Sarah, get the kids outside now," Mike said with quiet urgency. Sarah didn't hesitate. She gathered Emma and Jake and guided them toward the back door, which fortunately was still intact. As they moved, the bear watched them but made no move to follow or intercept them. Mike knelt near the stove and immediately smelled the strong odor of natural gas. The connection behind the range had somehow loosened, probably due to the cabin's natural settling or recent temperature changes. Gas had been seeping into the enclosed space for hours. The concentration wasn't yet at explosive levels, but it was building. In a few more hours, any spark from the fireplace, a light switch, or even static electricity could have triggered a devastating explosion. Mike quickly turned off the main gas line and opened all the windows and doors. As fresh mountain air began to circulate through the cabin, he finally understood what had happened. The bear's incredible sense of smell had detected the gas leak from outside the cabin. Rather than simply avoiding the danger, he had broken in to warn the humans who were unknowingly sleeping in a potential death trap. When Mike returned outside, he found his family standing at a safe distance, watching the bear who had remained near the cabin's front entrance. The massive animal seemed calmer now that the humans had taken action. "Is it gas?" Sarah asked. Mike nodded grimly. "Major leak. If he hadn't woken us up and shown us where to look, we could have all been killed in our sleep." Emma looked up at her father with wide eyes. "The bear saved us. The bear saved us," Mike confirmed. As dawn broke over the mountains, the Johnson family found themselves in the surreal situation of sharing their space with a wild bear who had become their unlikely savior. The gas had dissipated enough for them to safely return to the cabin, and Mike had contacted the rental agency in the emergency satellite phone to report the leak. Dr. Amanda Forster, a wildlife biologist from Colorado State University, arrived later that morning along with a gas company technician and a representative from the rental agency. She'd been called in to assess the unusual bear behavior and determine if the animal posed any ongoing threat. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Forster said after hearing the family's account. "Black bears generally avoid human contact whenever possible. For one to actively seek out humans and attempt to communicate danger goes against everything we typically see in their behavior patterns." The bear, whom Emma had dubbed Bruno, had remained in the area throughout the morning. He kept his distance, but seemed reluctant to leave, as if ensuring the humans were truly safe. Dr. Forster observed Bruno through binoculars, noting his calm demeanor and apparent intelligence. "This bear is exhibiting behaviors we usually only see in highly social animals or those with significant human interaction. But according to park records, this area hasn't had any problem bears or human-habituated animals." The gas technician confirmed that the leak had been serious. "The concentration was building toward dangerous levels," he explained. "Another few hours, and you could have had an explosion from any ignition source. That bear literally saved your lives." Dr. Forster was particularly interested in how Bruno had detected the leak from outside and understood that it represented a threat to the humans inside. Bears have incredible olfactory capabilities, up to 2,100 times more sensitive than humans. But the cognitive leap to associate that smell with human danger, and then to take action to warn them, that's remarkable intelligence. She theorized that Bruno might have encountered natural gas before, possibly at other cabins or camping areas where leaks had occurred. He may have learned to associate that odor with danger and explosions. Some animals can develop these learned behaviors and apply them to new situations. The rental agency was mortified by the incident and immediately began comprehensive inspections of all their properties. The gas line issue was traced to faulty installation with a recent renovation, a potentially deadly oversight that could have affected any guests. We're installing gas detection systems in all our cabins, the agency representative assured the family. This should never have happened, but Sarah was focused on Bruno, who continued to watch them from the tree line. What happens to him now? Dr. Forster smiled. Nothing. He goes back to being a wild bear. This was an extraordinary circumstance, but there's no indication he's become habituated to humans or poses any threat. If anything, he's proven he's a remarkably intelligent and possibly altruistic animal. The Johnson family's planned week-long retreat was cut short, but not because of fear. The cabin needed extensive repairs, and the gas company insisted on a complete system overhaul before anyone could safely stay there again. But something remarkable happened in the 2 days they remained while arrangements were made. Bruno established what could only be described as a friendship with the family, particularly with the children. Each morning, the massive bear would appear at the edge of the clearing, sitting calmly and watching the cabin. Emma and Jake, once they overcame their initial fear, became fascinated by their unusual protector. "Can we feed him?" Emma asked on their second morning. "Absolutely not," Mike said firmly. Dr. Forster was very clear about that. Feeding wild bears changes their behavior and can make them dangerous, but they could observe him, and Bruno seemed content to be observed. He would spend hours sitting at the edge of the forest, occasionally moving closer to investigate sounds or smells, but always maintaining a respectful distance. Dr. Forster returned each day to document Bruno's behavior, as it was providing valuable insights into bear intelligence and social cognition. "He's maintaining the perfect balance," she noted. "Close enough to monitor the family's safety, but not so close as to become a nuisance or danger." On their final morning, as the family packed their belongings, Bruno approached closer than he ever had before. He stopped about 30 feet from the cabin and simply sat, as if understanding that this was goodbye. Emma wanted to approach him, but Sarah held her back. "We can say goodbye from here, honey. Thank you, Bruno," Emma called out loudly. "Thank you for saving us." The bear's ears perked up at her voice, and for a moment, it seemed like he understood. Then he stood, looked at each family member one final time, and disappeared into the forest. Back in Denver, the Johnson family's story quickly gained attention from both media and scientific communities. Dr. Forster published a paper about Bruno's behavior in the Journal of Wildlife Management, calling it unprecedented evidence of interspecies altruistic behavior in North American black bears. The scientific community was divided about the implications. Some researchers argued that Bruno's actions were simply instinctual responses to a chemical stimulus, with no conscious understanding of helping humans. Others, like Dr. Forster, believed the evidence pointed to genuine cognitive reasoning and empathetic behavior. The bear didn't just detect the gas, she explained during a presentation at the International Association for Bear Research and Management. He made the connection between the gas, the danger to humans, and the need to take action. That's complex reasoning. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a leading expert in animal cognition at the University of California, was intrigued by the case. "We're seeing more evidence that many species are capable of much more sophisticated thinking than we previously believed." This bear demonstrated problem-solving, risk assessment, and what appears to be concern for the welfare of another species. The incident also led to changes in cabin safety protocols throughout Colorado. New regulations required gas detection systems in all rental properties, and bear-aware education was expanded to include information about animals' potential to detect dangers humans might miss. "The irony is that we spend so much time warning people about the dangers of bears," noted state wildlife manager Jennifer Walsh. "This case shows that sometimes bears might be the ones protecting us." Bruno himself became something of a local celebrity, though Dr. Forster was careful to ensure his privacy and natural behavior weren't disrupted by curious visitors. "He needs to remain a wild bear," she emphasized. The moment we turn him into a tourist attraction, or try to exploit this relationship, we put him at risk. The bear was fitted with a GPS collar to monitor his movements and ensure he wasn't developing problematic behaviors around other human habitations. The data showed that Bruno maintained his normal territorial patterns and showed no increased interest in human areas beyond his original range. 6 months after their mountain adventure, the Johnson family received an unexpected call from Dr. Forster. Bruno had been observed exhibiting similar protective behavior at another cabin where a family with small children was staying. He detected a carbon monoxide leak from a faulty heater, Dr. Forster reported. Same patterns approached the cabin, showed agitation, and refused to leave until the humans investigated. The family initially thought he was trying to break in, but when they called park rangers, we discovered the CO levels were approaching dangerous concentrations. This second incident confirmed that Bruno's behavior wasn't a one-time anomaly. He had apparently learned to associate certain chemical smells with human danger and was actively monitoring cabins in his territory for potential threats. We're documenting what might be the first recorded case of a wild bear actively protecting humans as part of his territorial behavior, Dr. Forster explained. Bruno seems to have adopted a protective role toward human visitors in his range. The discovery led to a new research project studying bear cognition and the potential for wild animals to serve as early warning systems for environmental hazards. Several other bears in different regions were being monitored for similar behaviors. For the Johnson family, the experience had changed their relationship with wildlife forever. They returned to camping and hiking with a new respect for animal intelligence and the interconnectedness of all life in natural ecosystems. People think of bears as dangerous predators, Sarah reflected during a follow-up interview with National Geographic. But Bruno taught us that they're complex, intelligent beings capable of compassion and altruism. He risked his own safety to save our family. Mike had a different perspective on the experience. It made me realize how much we don't know about the animals we share this planet with. We're so quick to assume we're the most intelligent species, but Bruno showed reasoning and empathy that honestly humbled me. Emma and Jake, now 9 and 11, had become passionate advocates for wildlife conservation. They regularly volunteered at local nature centers and had raised money for bear research through school projects. Bruno is my hero, Emma said simply. He showed me that animals and people can take care of each other. A year later, the Johnson family decided to return to the Colorado mountains, though to a different cabin with updated safety systems. They weren't expecting to see Bruno again. Black bears have territories of up to 15 square miles, and the chances of encountering the same bear twice were minimal. But on their second morning, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of their campsite. Bruno had grown slightly larger in the intervening year, his black coat thick and glossy from a successful summer of foraging. He sat at the tree line, the same respectful distance he'd maintained during their first encounter, and simply watched. Is that really him? Jake asked excitedly. Dr. Forster, who had remained in contact with the family, confirmed it through binoculars. That's definitely Bruno. The GPS collar data shows he's been monitoring this area for the past few days. I think he knew you were coming. This time, the encounter was purely social. There were no gas leaks, no emergencies, no danger to detect. Bruno simply seemed to want to reconnect with the family that had somehow become part of his extended territory. He visited each morning and evening for the duration of their stay, maintaining his careful distance, but clearly enjoying the opportunity to observe the humans who had become, in some inexplicable way, part of his world. This is unprecedented, Dr. Forster noted. We're witnessing the development of a long-term, cross-species relationship in the wild. Bruno has essentially adopted this family as part of his territory to protect and monitor. The interactions remained strictly observational, but the emotional connection was undeniable. Bruno would arrive each morning around sunrise, settle into his watching position, and remain until the family went inside for the night. He seemed particularly attentive when the children were playing outside, positioning himself where he could observe their activities. On their final day, the family prepared to leave with mixed emotions. They had hoped to see Bruno one last time, but as packing time approached, there was no sign of their ursine friend. Then, as they loaded the last of their gear into the car, Bruno emerged from the forest. He approached closer than he ever had before, still maintaining a safe distance, but close enough that they could see the intelligence and gentleness in his dark eyes. The family stood quietly, allowing Bruno to have the final word in their relationship. The bear sat for several minutes, looking at each family member in turn, as if memorizing their faces for future encounters. Then, without fanfare, he stood and disappeared back into the wilderness, leaving the Johnson family with memories that would last a lifetime and a new understanding of the remarkable intelligence and capacity for connection that exists in the natural world. The story of Bruno and the Johnson family challenges many assumptions about wild animals and their relationships with humans. It demonstrates that intelligence, empathy, and protective behavior aren't limited to domestic animals or humans. They exist throughout the natural world in forms we're only beginning to understand. Dr. Forster's ongoing research has documented similar behaviors in other bear populations, suggesting that Bruno's actions may not be as unique as initially thought. We're discovering that many animals are capable of much more sophisticated reasoning and emotional responses than we previously believed, she explains. The incident also highlights the importance of coexistence and mutual respect between humans and wildlife, rather than viewing wild animals solely as threats to be avoided or resources to be managed. Bruno's story suggests that we might find unexpected allies and protectors in the natural world. For the Johnson family, the experience transformed their understanding of their place in nature. They learned that survival in the wilderness isn't just about human preparedness and technology. Sometimes it's about recognizing and respecting the intelligence of our wild neighbors. Bruno taught us that we're all connected. Sarah reflects. Animals, humans, the environment, we're all part of the same ecosystem. When we respect that connection and pay attention to what other species are trying to tell us, amazing things can happen. The cabin where their adventure began now displays a plaque commemorating Bruno's heroic actions. The gas detection systems installed throughout the area serve as a reminder that safety often depends on recognizing dangers we might not be able to perceive ourselves. But perhaps the most important legacy of Bruno's story is the reminder that heroes come in all forms, sometimes on four legs, with dark fur and an incredible nose for danger. In a world where human-wildlife conflicts often make headlines, Bruno's tale offers hope that understanding, respect, and even friendship are possible between species. What do you think drives animals like Bruno to risk their own safety to protect others? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories that prove the natural world is full of heroes, intelligence, and connections we're only beginning to understand.